Good evening everyone and welcome to my new series called Mise en Scene. What is mise en scene, you ask? Well, mise en scene is everything that you see in the frame of a picture. The set design, the costumes, the props, the actors, they are all part of mise en scene, or as the French call it, mise en scene. This series will be based on certain aspects of filmmaking from a historical, thematic, or opinionated standpoint. Also, I want this to be an interactive series as well, so dependent on the person, you'll probably hear another voice apart from mine. So now that I've given you context, let's start off with our first topic. Costume design. Costumes, yes people. What are they in a film? Well, let me tell you something, they're more than just costumes. There's a reason I'm making this video. If you don't know, I critique films on my channel. I notice that every time I write my reviews, I rarely get to speak about costumes. Which is weird. Every single frame of a film has people in costume. So it was a bit of a personal mission for me. I wanted to learn more about costume design in films, and I hope you do as well by the end of this video. Now, they're there for a reason. A good director making a good film will make sure his or her costumes are integrated into the story somehow. They either become extensions of a character or an integral part of the story, and not just establishing the time period. In the brilliant miniseries called 11/22/63, our main character travels back in time to the 60s. He doesn't choose to change his wardrobe, he has to change his wardrobe in order to blend in. It establishes the time period and gives his wardrobe a function. Now conversely, there are bad films as well, where the costume design makes absolutely no sense, like the Hunger Games movies. If these are supposed to be the rich and oh so smart people living in the capital, why do they look like fucking jackasses? Their initial purpose is to classify a person through his job, personality, and or state of life. But can costumes be something more? A couple of YouTubers and I are going to give a couple of points, a couple of purposes, if you will, for costumes in films. So here we go. First point I'm going to make is rather simple. Costumes as a theme. For this example, I'm going to be using Mad Max Fury Road, which I believe recently won an Academy Award for costume design. If you remember our main character, Max Rockatansky, he has a mental handicap.
Help us, Max. You promised to help us.
I tell myself, they cannot touch me. They are long dead.
And later he gets a physical handicap as well. That's not the only character. Furiosa is missing one of her arms, the villain Immortan Joe needs a breathing thingy, and Nux needs blood. All of these things are furthered through the costume design. Max has that mask on his face, which definitely blurs his vision and impedes his breathing. Furiosa doesn't have her left arm. I think the negatives of those are pretty self-explanatory. She can't hold a gun, and she has to masturbate with her right hand, because who wants to masturbate with that on? Immortan Joe, the dude literally has to wear a thing to help him breathe, which is later stuck onto his body via a plate of body armor. And Nux's costume is literally a character. It's a nice little way of pushing a theme and giving a layer of story to a character. With Max and Nux, we know why they're given those handicaps. With Immortan Joe and Furiosa, it makes you think what could have happened for them to have these issues. And now everyone, let me hand over my microphone to a good friend and a fellow movie critic named Josh Wingard. Take it, Josh.
First of all, thank you so much, Rameez, for letting me jump into your video and inject a few of my own thoughts. But anyways, let's just get right into it. Costuming. And the topic that I want to bring up is one of the most simple and yet important things a costume could do, which is to identify the character's role and or morality. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to bring an example from one of the most famous franchises of all time, Star Wars. Specifically with the original trilogy, these iconic characters had equally iconic and memorable costumes. And no, I'm not just referring to Slave Leia from Return of the Jedi. Although I admittedly still believe that she is solely responsible for the start of my puberty. But I digress. Back to the point. Even more important than the design of these costumes, the most rudimentary and crucial function of them is to tell us who these characters are and what side they're on. And how do they do that? Well, it's so simple, it kind of sounds silly. Especially in the original Star Wars film, they achieved this by putting our heroes in white, or at least warm, light colors, and our villains in black, or dark, cold colors. This is an immediate subconscious identifier that these characters are good, and these characters are bad. And one of the most interesting things they do is with the character of Han Solo. Because what do they dress this lovable scoundrel in? White shirt, black vest. And whether you immediately realize it or not, his wardrobe reflects the fact that this guy is not on either side. He may have some good in him, but he's definitely not a good guy. After all, he did shoot Greedo first. But to bring up a second example, this famous space opera western is far from the first to do something like this, because the beloved old spaghetti western had been doing it for a long time. For example, the opening to perhaps one of the best westerns of all time, in Once Upon a Time in the West, from the moment that Charles Bronson steps off of that train in those light colors, staring down those fellas in the pitch black cowboy hats, we know exactly what side we're on. It's such a simple concept. You put your good guys in white and your bad guys in black to metaphorically show their leanings towards the light or the dark. The mere choice of the color of a character's wardrobe can be a very effective tool.
Thank you so much, Josh. That's incredible insight and incredibly simple, like you said, although it makes me wonder. It really adds a character to the stormtroopers. They wear white and the eye holes on their helmet are black. And ever since the addition of Finn, makes you wonder, are they all just brainwashed and forced to see darkness? Makes you wonder. Thank you so much again, Josh, for lending your voice and knowledge to this video. I really appreciate it. People, please show Josh some love on his excellent movie review channel. Now on to my next point, contrast. I'll be using two films for this example. One of them will display the contrast between characters, and the other will display the contrast between character and personal feelings. To show contrast between our characters, let's talk about Die Hard. I friggin' love this film. If there's any film close to perfection, it'd be this. I even made a video about it. Now, let's look at Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber and Bruce Willis's John McClane. Our villain is wearing a suit and tie. A suit and tie is also a cornerstone of the James Bond character, but in this film, villains don the suit and tie. Compare that to John McClane's wife beater. Now, if you had to look at these pictures without seeing the film, who would you say the bad guy was? I would say it's this guy, but then you watch the film and you figure out it's this guy. That's just one of the many reasons John McClane is a relatable character to the audience. We can't always look like James Bond, but we can definitely look a lot like John McClane. Now on to the second point of this, point. Characters against their feelings. The film I'm picking for this point is Her. Not only is it one of my favorite films, not only does it become more relatable with every heartbreak, sniff sniff, but it's an incredibly well thought out film. There's literally a reason to every aesthetic choice made in Her. From camera placement to sound design, and yes, costume design. Her is not just a film about love, it's also about the masks a person wears to hide from the public. Let's look at our main character, Theodore Twombly. Look at all those colorful shirts he's wearing, man. All vibrant colors, if only he was actually feeling as vibrant as those colors. Theodore is a man feeling so lost that he hides this fact by wearing eye-popping colors. His costumes never match how he's feeling, but this is yet another film which makes Theodore a relatable character by many means. We've all felt a bit lonely every now and then, haven't we, people? And Her captures that feeling by usually having Theodore standing as far away as from the camera and his clothes against what he's feeling when he's in a pool of people. Conversely, having the camera nearer to him when he's alone at home. And now on to the second YouTuber of this collaboration. I am handing my microphone to Mr. Shadow Reflex.
Hello everyone, I'm Shadow Reflex and I love films. If you take There Will Be Blood, the costumes represent the social position of the wealthy and working class. A lot can be pulled from the now legendary introduction sequence. At the start, Daniel was seen working alone at the bottom of a pit, wearing the typical clothes of the manual labourer. He wears brown trousers, suspenders and a black hat. This outfit and variations of it will be repeated throughout the film as stock clothes for Daniel's workers. The fact that we first see him dressed this way tells us that he is from the same background and that it's through his own strength and determination that he was able to rise to the level where he no longer has to undertake physical labor. The rise becomes evident as time progresses, when Daniel, now able to hire few workers, travels on a train with his adopted son. Men with great economic aspirations try to emulate the respectable dress of the upper class, and Daniel's dark suit, waistcoat and hat signals his ambitions and growing status. The idea of class and status is greatly emphasized in 12 Years a Slave, a film that shows a world unfamiliar to the modern audience that the dress can fill in the blanks of society during the 19th century. But when we look at Solomon as a downtrodden slave, his sense of ownership and power is literally stripped off him. His class, his family, his sense of being as a wealthy and respected man is lost, and the only thing to his name is a white laced shirt. The plain clothing of the slaves draws even further attention to the functional necessity of plantation slaves. It has one function and one function only: to keep them alive to work. A slave's uniform was washed and worn, washed and worn, and washed and worn, until it literally fell to pieces. Once again, the parallel with Solomon's life is rather explicit. 12 Years a Slave is tricky to follow in terms of how far into Solomon's imprisonment the events are occurring. Costumes help significantly here, as it helps keep track of his existence. By the end of the story, Solomon's loose open neck shirt resembles a grubby sack, just as weathered and close to breaking point as its wearer. Furthermore, Brad Pitt's character is a saviour in the film, with him being the only character that lends his ears to Solomon. His white clothes symbolize his angel-like appearance, and I would even go far as to say his hair and beard resembles Jesus himself.
Very, very good points, good sir. I really hope you people are learning as I am. You don't need me to tell you that you should subscribe to Shadow Reflex's channel. The man is an encyclopedia of knowledge and information, man. I guarantee you it's not just the British accent. Thanks again, my brother, and an honor to have you lend your voice here. For my final point, people, don't worry, you won't have to listen to my voice and lisp for longer. We are going to be talking about the blurring effect, and we are going to be looking at Michael Mann's films. Michael Mann loves to tell stories about the law, exploring both sides. What's intriguing about his films and choice of costumes is how plain they are. Everyone just wears a suit and a plain shirt. He also applies color theory to them. Look at Vincent in Collateral. He wears gray. His hair is gray, representing his detachment and the fact that he doesn't care about right or wrong. He's in a moral gray area. All he knows is his job.
Next! I do this for a living!
But anyways, I'm getting off track. Let's get back to the main point. This is the opposite of Die Hard's contrasting element. Michael Mann wants to show you that these people aren't different. In Heat, the supposed bad guy and the supposed good guy wear the same getup for most of the film. Who would you say is the villain of this film by just looking at these pictures? It's really hard to say. Heat's also a story about our main characters' lives mirroring each other. They can't find happiness. This is obviously done through more elements than just costume design, but costume design is one of them. Michael Mann's costume design is as real life would be. You don't really know who you can bump into in your day-to-day life. I mean, anyone can be a thief, a hitman, a bank robber, or a hacker. All honorable occupations, by the way. Anyway, people, that's about it. We hope you've learned something from watching this video, as we have by making it for you. If you enjoyed this video and our opinions, you already know the drill. Please share this video along with me. Please subscribe to Josh's channel for some excellent and insightful movie reviews and to admire his neat set. Subscribe to Mr. Shadow Reflex to see movies broken down bit by bit. I recommend watching his analysis of the film Prisoners. It is absolutely mind-blowing. And finally, my channel for more episodes of Mise en Scene, the movie doctor, and movie reviews, and not just Hollywood movie reviews. If you noticed in the beginning of this clip, I had some Bollywood spliced in it as well, so I am transitioning into reviewing films of foreign languages, especially Bollywood, since, you know, I'm an Indian guy. And when you're done with all of that, after the closing state of this video, I'm going to tell you guys about the next video and how you can be a part of it. So wait a couple seconds for that. Until then, people, remember to love yourselves. Hey there guys, thanks again for watching. It seriously means a ton. Anyway, the next video is about the evolution of cinematography. To be a part of this video, tell me how you think cinematography has changed for better or for worse. Contact me on Twitter at RameezFilmGeek if interested. Whoever makes the best and most interesting arguments will get to be a part of the video. And don't worry if your argument isn't as strong as the victor's argument. This is not going to be a 2-episode series. There's so much to talk about in filmmaking, so you will undoubtedly have your voice featured on my relatively small show. Boy, that sounds so nerdy, right? Who would ever want to just talk about films, eh? But here's hoping a few people do. As I said earlier, people, remember to love yourselves. Thanks once again for watching.